Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, Dr. Ali Akbar Salehi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ambassador Bidinejad, my colleague, Mr. Barasubramaniam Murali from UNDP, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, heads of the UN agencies, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to you all. And thank you for supporting, through your presence, this joint launch of UNDP's Human Development Report for 2013. Having arrived to take up my post only 1 month ago, I am honored to have this opportunity to engage with so many colleagues from government and the international community here this morning. Our event will not only launch the report of the UNDP's Human Development Report in Iran, it will also allow us to shine a light on some of the accomplishments which have taken place in this country during the past 3 decades, which is the period covered by the report. My address today will therefore contain 3 essential messages. 1, there are profound and positive lessons that we can learn from the rise of the South in the past 2 decades. 2, some of these lessons can be found right here in Iran, and some of them are best practices worthy of replication elsewhere across the planet. 3, the government and people of Iran can continue to count upon the United Nations to work with and to support both development and humanitarian work in your country. This year, our report, 22nd in a series which started way back in 1990, is titled The Rise of the South. The storyline is both timely and accurate. For the first time in recent history, the South as a whole has become a driver of global economic growth and societal change. During the past 2 decades, important structural changes have taken place in the global economic balance of power. The signs, they are all around us. Here are some examples extracted from the report. According to UNDP projections, by the year 2020, the combined economic output of 3 key emerging economies, those of Brazil, China, and India, will surpass that of the following countries combined: Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the US, and the UK. Another example, the South is increasingly interconnected. The rapid spread of technology allows more people to communicate. People now have much more power to influence decisions which will affect their own lives. Another example, the South has now accumulated substantial capital reserves. It now holds around 2/3 of the world's $10.2 trillion worth of foreign exchange reserves. Now our challenge must therefore be to understand what is driving this dramatic acceleration of economic and human development. What lessons have we learned? Certainly, one key lesson repeated in many previous human development reports is that economic growth does not automatically translate into human development. Human development, instead, comes from the deliberate policy and action by governments which show a commitment to long-term human development. Governments do this by investing mainly in 4 areas. The first is to take action that can make citizens less poor. The state can do this by investing in people's health, their nutrition, their education, and their skills. Such public investment enables more informed choices. Choices enhance people's capabilities. Choices provide opportunities. Opportunities for trade, for market access, for jobs, and for innovation. What is the result? People become less poor. Second, our report indicates that countries with less inequality do better in terms of human development. A powerful policy instrument to promote equity is education. The report shows that targeted investment in girls' education in particular have significant impacts on human development. This enables better health choices, for example, and reduces child mortality and improves child nutrition. So the lessons are quite simple. The lessons are these: keep girls in school, empower women, and keep children who are born alive. Third, we need to take care of our environment. We need to move faster on this, both at the global and the local level. Climate change in particular, with all of its faster feedback mechanisms, has the potential to halt and then reverse development, especially the gains made by the poorest in the South. Fourth and finally, governments need to promote equity and accountability. Young people who are educated and interconnected are now demanding a greater degree of accountability. Our report shows that participation and inclusion are essential for stability and social cohesion. Giving people a voice tends to make both the state and private actors more accountable. So in summary, and looking to the future, the report concludes that if global human development is to continue rising, we need to ensure that people have more choices, that there is more equity, more inclusion, and that the environment is not degrading. I would now like to turn to what the report says about the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Human Development Index, or what we call the HDI, is a summary measure for assessing long-term progress in 3 basic dimensions of human development. These are long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Iran's HDI value for the year 2012, the year just concluded, is 0.742. This puts Iran in the high human development category. UNDP, in fact, uses 4 HDR categories: very high, high, medium, and low. Iran's current position is 76 out of 187 countries surveyed. Here are some of those countries and their HDI rankings. However, what is really important and what should be commended is Iran's progress in human development when measured over the past 32 years. Here is one way of seeing this. Let's compare Iran's HDI progress with that of 2 large countries in South Asia for the same period. The result is what you see on screen. Now, according to UNDP calculations, between the years 1980 and 2012, Iran's HDI value increased by 67%. This translates to an average annual increase of about 1.6%. Let me put these numbers into context. During the same period, for other countries in the high human development group, that is the group containing Iran, the average annual gain was only about half of what Iran managed. Only about half. The figure is 0.73%. For all countries on the planet, the average gain was even less, only 0.69%. This means, this is the UNDP conclusion, that Iran's annual growth in its HDI was over double that of the global average. And this would seem to imply that from a human development standpoint, during the period 1980 to 2012, Iran's policy interventions were both significant and appropriate to produce improvements in human development. In fact, the report also says that Iran achieved the second highest reduction in HDI shortfall among developing countries during that 22-year period. Only one country was able to do better, in fact. That country is the Republic of Korea. Now, what do all of these numbers actually mean for the average citizen? How do they translate onto the ground? Please take a look at the following images. They tell the story of Iran's progress. As I mentioned, the first of three components of the HDI is a long and healthy life. UNDP measures this in terms of life expectancy at birth. During the period from 1980, Iran increased this measure from 51 years to 73 years. The second component is access to knowledge. Here we look at the expected years of schooling starting from 1980. As you can see, the graph shows an increase from 8.7 to 14.4 years. This is an impressive achievement. The third component is what we call a decent standard of living. Here again, the increase has been considerable. And having attained the status of a middle-income country, Iran is now playing its own part in the rise of the South. When I was reading the report, ladies and gentlemen, I was also struck by the following facts. In Iran, for every 100,000 live births, only 21 women die from pregnancy-related causes. The group average for other HDI countries, 47. 21, 47. In Iran, the adolescent fertility rate is 25 births per 1,000 live births. Group average, 50. In Iran, 25, group 50. This is not to say, of course, that there are no remaining development needs or challenges in the country. By no means. Unemployment, combined with inflation, are persistent challenges. And the report indeed also points to areas to be addressed in terms of gender equity. Nonetheless, on the whole, and again from a human development standpoint, the report sends a clear signal. For the period 1980 to 2012, Iran's policy interventions and its actions have produced significant improvements in its Human Development Index. But the report goes further and sends a broader signal at the global level. That signal is this. As the world continues to become increasingly interconnected through trade, through migration, and communications, we need more coordinated action. We need greater cooperation, both within the South and between the South and the North. And this brings me, distinguished colleagues, Your Excellency, to my last point. In terms of building bridges and networks which can span borders, the United Nations can help to build an even closer partnership to enable Iran to draw the best out of what we as an organization can offer. For most of the period reviewed by our report, the UN's agencies, its funds and its programs have been right here, on the ground, working with and in Iran to support its people. Our world and our region currently face many human development and humanitarian challenges. Among these, I believe the most critical are natural disasters, poverty, population and displacement, public health problems, resource scarcity, drug trafficking and abuse, and indeed, the challenge of climate change. These challenges need a response where the best knowledge is made available, where the best practices are used, and where countries cooperate across borders. The UN in Iran, guided by the Millennium Development Goals, can promote such cooperation. Although the UN's work in Iran is divided mainly between development and humanitarian objectives, the framework for our development cooperation resides in our UN Development Assistance Framework, or UNDAF, which is now on screen. Since joining the UN team in Iran in the past month, I have come to learn from colleagues in New York, our headquarters, that the Iran UNDAF has been recognized indeed as a model in terms of its development and its ownership by the government. It was developed through an intense process of consultations led by the government and with participation from various parts of the government and civil society. Our UNDAF provides strategic vision for our work. It is based on principles which include national ownership and using approaches which are culturally sensitive. The government and the UN have agreed jointly to tackle the challenges that you see on screen. They are poverty reduction, health, environment, disaster risk reduction, and drug control. So I conclude by saying that on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations, I commit the UN to pursuing these goals to the best of our ability. In time, I would like to see that the UN comes to play indeed an even more constructive role in helping to promote the goals of the UN Charter, as contained in its preamble. Sir, colleagues, the UN is here to help. Thank you, and Khuda Hafiz.